Hollywood thought it had Sylvester Stallone pegged Rocky, the eternal underdog, Rambo, the indestructible action hero. But beyond the cinematic muscle and myth lies a fiercely guarded secret, a volatile landscape of bitter rivalries and shocking confrontations that have simmered in Tinseltown's shadows for decades, until now. What if the Stallone you think you know is barely half the story? Get ready, because in just a few minutes, we're ripping the curtain back on 5 explosive feuds Stallone himself might prefer stayed buried. And you won't believe how one legendary rival tricked Sly into a massive career blunder, a truth he only conceded years later. Can you even imagine that happening? If you value honest storytelling, support the creators, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Imagine an icon of unbreakable strength, yet haunted by personal vendettas that shaped his destiny. What happens when the on-screen warrior wages real-life wars? Missing this means missing the true story behind the legend, the raw, unfiltered Stallone few have ever seen. This isn't just gossip, it's the key to understanding the man, the kind of stuff that makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about Hollywood power plays. So, who were these powerful figures who dared to cross the Italian stallion? What fueled these epic Hollywood battles, often far deeper and more personal than simple rivalry? The answers will surprise, maybe even shock you, touching on bruised egos, accusations of betrayal, and confrontations that almost came to blows. Why would a man who seemingly conquered the world carry such grudges for so long? Could it be that the same fire that drove him to the top also fueled these legendary clashes? It turns out there's so much more to Sylvester Stallone than anyone realized. His fame grit wasn't just for the cameras, it was forged in these very fires, a relentless drive that defined his every move. Stallone, a figure seemingly sculpted from iron, didn't just materialize fully formed on the silver screen. No, his battles, his defining defiance, began long before Hollywood ever knew his name, ignited on the harsh, unforgiving streets of New York, where a traumatic birth marked him from his very first breath. This is where that incredible story of resilience truly kicks off. The biting New York winds seem to echo the harsh realities awaiting Sylvester Stallone, for his story of defiance began not on a stage, but in the crucible of a difficult birth. July 6th, 1946. Hell's Kitchen, New York, a name that itself sounds like a movie backdrop for a tough beginning. Inside a city dwelling, a drama unfolded a complicated delivery, the cold, unforgiving steel of forceps, and a newborn's cry nearly silenced by a sudden, life-altering injury. The future action hero was scarred before he could utter his first word, an almost prophetic start. His mother, Jacqueline "Jackie" Stallone, a vibrant, unforgettable character, renowned for her astrology and pioneering work in women's wrestling promotion. And his father, Francesco "Frank" Stallone, Sr., an Italian immigrant barber with dreams of his own, welcomed a son whose early life would be anything but ordinary.
Charity award. We couldn't afford a real doctor, and the operation was performed by an intern who accidentally paralyzed the motor nerves on the left side of his face. So for the first 4 years, he couldn't open his eye or use the side of his mouth in his sleep.
That fateful forceps accident severed a nerve, leaving the left side of Sylvester's face partially paralyzed, his lip, tongue, and chin forever bearing the mark, gifting him the snarling appearance and uniquely slurred speech that would, against all odds, become an unlikely iconic signature. This visible difference, a constant reminder of that initial trauma, made young Stallone an immediate target for relentless, cruel bullying. Kids can be brutal, can't they? Yet, from this crucible of pain and alienation, an iron will was forged, a steely determination to prove himself. He found solace and strength not in conventional paths, but in the raw power of bodybuilding and the distant, almost fantastical dream of acting. His path, however, was far from a straight shot to fame. A guidance counselor, perhaps seeing only the surface, bluntly informed his mother that her son, with his speech and appearance, would be best suited as an assistant electrician, a future far removed from the glittering lights of Hollywood. But Stallone harbored grander ambitions, an unshakable belief in the power of storytelling.
And by that I mean acting and writing and whatnot, that really are responsible, that have something to say about life, that will better life, and that perhaps when I go to my grave, they'll say, well, he made some contribution in saying that man really has an unshakable spirit and optimism.
After a difficult period in foster care and a move to Philadelphia with his mother following his parents' divorce, his early forays into the world were fraught with struggle. He scraped by with minor film roles and a string of humbling odd jobs, including the less than glamorous task of cleaning cages at a zoo. Can you imagine the grit required desperation? A powerful motivator gnawed at him, eventually leading him to a role in the 1970 softcore film, The Party at Kitty and Studs, a decision born of sheer homelessness and the dire need to simply survive. Then, a spark, down but never truly out. Nursing a flicker of an idea, perhaps kindled by the raw, unadulterated energy of a televised boxing match that captured the nation's imagination, Stallone poured all his accumulated frustrations, his hopes, his very essence into a script, in a legendary, feverish burst of creativity. He wrote Rocky, the quintessential underdog story that mirrored his own struggles. He wasn't just the writer. In his soul, he was Rocky Balboa. Hollywood executives, ever cautious, were intrigued by the script's raw power but balked at casting an unknown with a noticeable speech impediment in the lead role. They offered to buy his story, his words, but not his dream of embodying the character he had birthed. Stallone, however, channeling that Hell's Kitchen defiance, stood his ground with an unwavering, almost desperate conviction. "It's my story," he insisted, his voice firm despite its unique cadence. "I am Rocky." This wasn't just a movie role, this was the gamble of a lifetime. His one shot, the gamble paid off. And how Rocky wasn't just a film, it was a global phenomenon, a cultural touchstone. Stallone, the unknown, the one they almost passed over, was suddenly an international celebrity, an Oscar nominee for both acting and writing. But as one colossal mountain was conquered, the glittering, often treacherous landscape of Hollywood prepared to reveal new challenges, new arenas, and, yes, new rivals sharpening their knives. Indeed, the glittering, treacherous landscape of Hollywood presented immediate new peaks to scale, each with its own set of guardians and contenders. Rocky had undeniably rocketed Sylvester Stallone from obscurity to bona fide stardom, but it was a brooding, troubled Vietnam vet named John Rambo who would etch his image indelibly as a global action icon, a symbol of raw, untamed power. This new ascent didn't just amplify his fame, it ignited a new kind of on-screen intensity that resonated worldwide and, perhaps inevitably, began to fuel one of Hollywood's most legendary and talked about rivalries behind the scenes. The Academy Awards had showered Rocky with critical praise, including those coveted nominations for Best Actor and Best Screenplay for Stallone himself, culminating in a stunning Best Picture win that sent shockwaves through the industry, the ultimate validation for his unwavering belief. Suddenly, Stallone was a household name, the embodiment of the underdog spirit. And in an interview, he said he wrote the script in about 3 days.
Well, it took about, this will sound pretentious, but it took 3 days, of which 90% was terrible. But the idea was there.
Right.
That was it. So, and then after that, it took maybe 25 rewrites.
His career surged forward with unstoppable momentum throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, proving he was more than just a charismatic presence in front of the lens. He stepped behind the camera for his directorial debut with Paradise Alley in 1978, a gritty, atmospheric tale of three brothers navigating the tough world of professional wrestling in the 1940s. This was followed swiftly by F.I.S.T. in the same year, where he delivered a powerful performance as a warehouse laborer who rises to become a potent union leader, a character loosely inspired by the controversial figure of James Hoffa. And, of course, the world wanted more Rocky. Rocky II in 1979, which Stallone also wrote and directed, didn't just repeat the success, it roared to a staggering $200 million global haul, proving the Italian stallion was no one-hit wonder. In an interview, He shared what other people think.
Some people have said, well, this could never happen, that an underdog would get a shot at the title like this. Well, I'd like to take issue with that.
Then came Rambo, the legend of John Rambo. The misunderstood and battle-scarred Green Beret was truly born with first blood in 1982. This wasn't just another action film. It launched a new, darker franchise and revealed a deeper, more complex facet of Stallone's acting abilities.
And I looked at this, I'm going, this is a career killer.
Right.
This film, when we did it, it was so bad, at least I thought.
Right.
And even my manager, we both went out, I think we both retched together in the alleys.
Many critics and audiences noted his portrayal of the traumatized soldier as profoundly more human and nuanced than the character in the original novel, adding layers of vulnerability to the explosive action. He continued to break down barriers and expectations, starring alongside acting royalty like Michael Caine and soccer great Pelé in the World War II drama Escape to Victory, and as a determined, street-smart cop hunting a terrorist in Nighthawks. Sylvester Stallone talks with Pelé about their upcoming film, Escape to Victory, during the 1980 Soccer Bowl.
Yes, I met him yesterday, and I thought it was kind of a coincidence. I didn't know. I'm sure hope they go the distance and all that, but I've learned so much about this game and the way they're playing and the heat and everything, and Fort Lauderdale is playing a very aggressive game, so it's quite interesting to watch. And I was so ignorant about this game up until I met Pelé about 18 weeks ago.
Eyeing for Rocky III in 1982, his dedication to his craft was absolute and visibly astonishing. He trained his body down to an almost inhuman 2.8% body fat, while a foray into a musical sequel, Staying Alive, which he directed, stumbled with critics. Commercial triumphs like the Cold War-fueled Rocky IV and the explosive Rambo First Blood Part 2 in 1985 solidified his reign as a box office king. It was during this supercharged era that the famous, often intensely personal, feud with Arnold Schwarzenegger ignited. Two titans of the action hero genre, openly and sometimes aggressively, vying for the top spots in the fiercely competitive Hollywood hierarchy. Stallone's star continued to blaze brightly through the rest of the 80s and into the 90s with a string of popular action hits like Cobra, Tango and Cash, and the vertigo-inducing Cliffhanger. Amidst this meteoric rise and the burgeoning rivalries, his personal life also evolved. He had married Sasha Chak in 1974, and they welcomed sons Sage Stallone in 1976 and Sergio Stallone in 1979. The early diagnosis of autism for his son, Sergio, presented a profound personal challenge. A quiet battle waged away from the camera's glare, even as his fame reached new heights. But the higher Stallone climbed, the more perilous the tightrope of fame became, and the harder the potential fall. The glittering lights of Hollywood, after all, often cast long, dark, and unforgiving shadows. The late 1990s would test Stallone's renowned resilience in ways that no scripted movie role ever could, pushing him to his limits. His personal life, too, was about to enter yet another new and decidedly turbulent chapter. Those glittering lights of Hollywood indeed cast long, dark shadows. And as his personal life entered that turbulent new chapter, the king of action suddenly found his professional throne shaking, the ground beneath his once unconquerable boots feeling decidedly unsteady. As the millennium turned, Sylvester Stallone faced a harsh career winter, a chilling string of box office flops that echoed through the industry. Films like the gritty remake Get Carter in 2000, the racing drama Driven the following year, and then both Avenging Angelo and the long-delayed thriller Detox in 2002 all underperformed critically and commercially. Hollywood, a town quick to forget past glories, began to whisper, was the Titan finally falling his once unshakable star power? The kind that could open any movie seemed to wane as the action genre itself shifted, audiences craving more cerebral fare or newer, younger faces. His signature style of pectoral pumping, no-nonsense storytelling felt, for a challenging period, like a relic of a bygone era. His public persona, so intrinsically and globally tied to the invincible images of Rocky and Rambo, struggled to find new ground amidst his earnest efforts to reinvent himself and explore different roles. The tumult wasn't confined to his career. His personal life was a roller coaster, often playing out in the relentless glare of tabloid headlines. After his divorce from Sasha Chak, Stallone's marriage to the striking Danish actress Brigitte Nielsen in December 1985 was a whirlwind romance that quickly became fodder for gossip columns worldwide. Their intense, highly publicized two-year union and subsequent 1987 divorce were as dramatic as any of his film scripts. He later found a seemingly more stable and enduring connection with model Jennifer Flavin, whom he began dating in 1988. Yet, this relationship too weathered significant storms, notably a dramatic and public interlude in 1994 involving model Janice Dickinson and a disputed paternity claim regarding her newborn daughter. The situation was ultimately resolved by DNA tests confirming Stallone was not the father, and after a period of separation, he and Flavin reunited. They finally married in May 1997, a union that would last for over 2 decades and produce 3 daughters, Sophia, Sistine, and Scarlett. And in an interview, his wife, Jennifer Flavin, shared how they met through work.
So I meet him at this restaurant, and he's sitting at a table with all these beautiful women, and my girlfriend and I were like, okay, we'll just join the crowd. And we did, and all these girls were all over him, and my girlfriend and I were just sitting there, but he started talking to me and my friend.
But even this long-standing marriage would face its public crisis years later. Heartbreak of a different, more devastating kind would strike the deepest blow in 2012 with the tragic and untimely death of his eldest son, Sage Stallone. From heart disease at the young age of 36, an unimaginable loss for any parent. In an Associated Press interview, Sylvester Stallone's co-stars on The Expendables gave him space after the passing of his son, Sage Stallone. Actors like Dolph Lundgren and Randy Couture expressed their deep sympathy for Stallone, sending handwritten condolences and making charitable donations in memory of his son. They also spoke about missing Stallone, who was not only a leader on set but also a respected person.
Contributed to a charity for his kid, that kind of stuff. But, gotta let him. He knows we're thinking about him. He knows us. He knows we, prayers come out.
Parallel to these emotional trials were the unceasing physical ones. His commitment to performing his fearless stunts had always been a cornerstone of his appeal, but it came at a steep, painful price. His body was a roadmap of injuries a broken finger incurred during Escape to Victory, a harrowing 4-day ICU stay after taking a real, bone-jarring punch from Dolph Lundgren during the filming of Rocky's Foster, and, most alarmingly, a broken neck requiring a metal plate implant during a fight scene in The Expendables. Legal troubles also began to surface more frequently, painting the picture of an increasingly complex and sometimes embattled public figure. Yet, true to his character and his own life story, Stallone's career was far from over. A temporary resurgence flickered in the mid-2000s, a prelude to a more significant and celebrated Hollywood comeback, largely driven by the successful revival of his most iconic franchises, Rocky and Rambo. This challenging period, however, undeniably underscored the inherent dilemma of the aging action star in a youth-obsessed industry. Through the dizzying highs and crushing lows, Stallone's public image, sometimes battered but never broken, remained that of a fighter. Yet, as the world would soon learn in more detail, some of his most intense and fascinating battles weren't on screen or even with his demons, but rather with fellow actors, titans of the industry in their own right. The first of these legendary conflicts, simmering for years, takes us back to the raw beginnings of the 1970s, to a greasy spoon encounter that nearly ended in a full-blown brawl before filming even properly wrapped. That greasy spoon encounter, a prelude to one of Hollywood's most enduring and perhaps pettiest celebrity feuds, indeed nearly boiled over before the cameras even rolled seriously, setting a wild tone. Picture this: a smear of mustard, a flying elbow delivered with force, and an unceremonious, angry ejection from a car, Sylvester Stallone's explosive feud with Richard Gere didn't just simmer, it erupted with startling volatility on the set of The Lords of Flatbush way back in the early 1970s. This wasn't just a minor disagreement. It marked the true, combustible start of a decades-long animosity that would resurface in the most glamorous of settings. During the filming of the gritty coming-of-age drama, where a young, then relatively unknown, Richard Gere played the character Chico Tyrell, tensions between him and the equally ambitious Stallone were reportedly already high. Two young lions circling each other. The infamous mustard incident became the flashpoint, the stuff of Hollywood legend. As the story goes, Gere was enjoying a hot dog, generously laden with mustard and onions, inside Stallone's cramped car during a lunch break. Whether by accident or a perceived act of provocation, some of that greasy condiment allegedly dripped onto Stallone's pants. Stallone, never one to suffer perceived disrespect lightly, especially not in his vehicle, reacted instantly and physically. An elbow, some say deliberately aimed, connected sharply with the side of Gere's head, and the future star of Pretty Woman found himself unceremoniously and probably quite painfully booted from the vehicle. The director, caught in the middle of this alpha male meltdown, faced a stark choice: fire one of these budding, volatile talents, or perhaps risk further chaos by keeping both. Director Marty Davidson shared that,
and Richard was very uncomfortable in it. And they became antagonistic towards one another. And I could see, if I'm going to do this film through these, if I'm rewriting this over this period of time, these next 2 months, I thought it'd be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, it kept getting longer and longer.
in the end, after this rather undignified scuffle, Richard Gere was let go from the production, becoming an early casualty in the long and storied annals of Hollywood celebrity feuds. But this was far more than just a fleeting on-set spat, fueled by youthful machismo and a messy lunch. The animosity lingered, casting a long shadow that would resurface years later with almost royal implications. Fast forward to the 1990s, at a lavish, star-studded party hosted by the music icon Elton John, a world away from the gritty streets of Flatbush, Stallone, by then a global superstar, reportedly spotted Richard Gere, also a major Hollywood player, deeply engrossed in an animated conversation with none other than the beloved Princess Diana. According to Elton John's husband, David Furnish, who later recounted the almost surreal episode, Stallone became visibly agitated, his old rivalry still burning bright. Accounts suggest Stallone then directly confronted Gere, reportedly accusing him, though of what exactly remains a tantalizing piece of celebrity lore. The atmosphere in the opulent room grew thick with tension, so palpable that a physical fight between the two leading men seemed terrifyingly imminent. A potential clash of Hollywood titans right in front of royalty, though punches were ultimately not thrown. And both actors, true professionals, went on to maintain their hugely successful careers. The smoldering embers of their deeply rooted conflict had once again flared dramatically, cementing this tense relationship as an epic, almost operatic episode in the often unseen, high-stakes drama of celebrity rivalries. The confrontation with Gere at Elton John's party eventually cooled, the immediate crisis averted, but Stallone's well-documented capacity for intense disagreement and holding a grudge wouldn't lie dormant for long. Years later, another high-profile dispute would erupt. This time, the battlefield wasn't a cramped car or a glittering party, but the negotiation table. The issue, not spilled food or royal attention, but cold, hard cash. Millions of it, and the adversary was another contemporary action powerhouse, Bruce Willis. Sylvester Stallone's storied Hollywood journey is filled with dramatic conflicts, none more revealing than his high-profile falling out with Bruce Willis during the production of The Expendables 3. This particular clash wasn't about ego-stroking or creative disagreements. It was all about money, and a lot of it. Willis, who had been part of the franchise's ensemble of aging action legends, reportedly demanded a staggering $4 million for just 4 days of work. The request, equating to $1 million per day, was seen by Stallone and the production team as excessive even insulting, given the complex budget and large cast already in place. Rather than engage in prolonged negotiations, Stallone responded swiftly and publicly. He not only refused the demand, but also ousted Willis from the film, replacing him with fellow icon Harrison Ford. The casting shakeup sent ripples through Hollywood, clearly signaling that the Expendables would continue with or without Willis, and that Stallone remained firmly at the helm. But the drama didn't end there. Taking to social media, Stallone launched a rare and scathing public attack, calling Willis greedy and lazy and warning that such behavior was a sure formula for career failure. It was a brutally candid and confrontational move, exposing just how personally Stallone took the dispute and how strongly he felt about loyalty and commitment, especially when it came to his own creative ventures. This explosive rift was a striking reminder of the intense pressures behind big-budget action franchises, where massive egos, tight schedules, and sky-high financial stakes often collide. Despite the fallout, both Stallone and Willis continued to enjoy successful careers, though their professional paths never intersected again. Stallone's public rebuke and decisive action underscored his leadership role within the franchise and his unwillingness to let financial disputes compromise the project's integrity. However, while monetary squabbles like this could bruise egos and damage reputations, Stallone's greatest personal challenge would come not from contract negotiations, but from a betrayal that struck far closer to home. As the curtain closed on his feud with Willis, a deeper, more painful rift loomed, this time involving a once close friend, Eddie Murphy, and whispers surrounding Stallone's wife. In a career marked by blockbuster success, physical endurance, and cinematic resilience, Stallone's emotional strength would soon be tested in ways money couldn't mend. In the late 1980s, a once close friendship between Hollywood powerhouses Sylvester Stallone and Eddie Murphy was irreparably damaged by personal betrayal and rumor. At the heart of the rift was Stallone's then-wife, Brigitte Nielsen, a statuesque actress who appeared alongside Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop 2, 1987. Gossip quickly spread of an alleged affair between Nielsen and Murphy, reaching Stallone and provoking a furious confrontation. According to Murphy in a candid 1989 Rolling Stone interview, Stallone called him in a rage and accused him directly. Murphy denied the accusation emphatically, insisting Nielsen was never his type and that he would never betray a friend in such a way. Murphy recalled, "I haven't talked to him since then. He thought I fucked his wife. He heard the rumor and believed it. He came after me and said, 'You fucked my wife.' I said, 'Down, brother. I didn't fuck your wife.' We talked about it, but I guess somewhere in the back of his head, he'll never really know the truth. Sly and I liked each other too, but after the weirdness with Brigitte, it was ruined. I didn't fuck her." Despite Murphy's denials, Stallone's suspicion proved too deep to overcome, and the incident ended their once solid friendship. The fallout reflected the dark side of fame, a place where trust is fragile, and rumors can destroy even the strongest of bonds. This personal conflict marked only one of the many intense battles Stallone faced during his career. Known for his gritty determination both on-screen and off, he also clashed with legendary actor Kirk Douglas on the set of First Blood. Douglas, originally cast as Colonel Troutman, disagreed with the script's ending and refused to yield to Stallone's vision, leading to his replacement just days before filming. This clash nearly derailed the launch of the Rambo franchise. Together, these events showcased the personal and professional challenges Stallone endured, both betrayals and creative clashes, yet also highlight his unyielding resilience. Whether in matters of the heart or the high-stakes world of Hollywood filmmaking, Stallone remained a fighter, navigating a landscape filled with both glory and heartbreak. In a pivotal moment of Hollywood history, Sylvester Stallone's vision for First Blood was nearly derailed by a dramatic and high-stakes creative clash with screen legend Kirk Douglas. Douglas, cast as Colonel Sam Troutman, the mentor and commanding officer of Stallone's John Rambo, demanded a radically different ending. Rambo had to die, staying true to the darker tone of David Morrell's original novel. Stallone shared in an interview in the original Rambo, he was so savage, so damaged that he killed many people in the movie, and at the very end needed to be killed like an animal himself because he could never go back to society. Stallone and director Ted Kotcheff, however, believed Rambo's survival was essential for the story's emotional impact and long-term potential. So, the end I want him to have an emotional death where he cries out, "I can't find my legs, all my friends," but physically he stays alive because many Americans were coming back. Despite intense behind-the-scenes negotiations and multiple rewrites to appease Douglas, the star remained uncompromising. The standoff culminated in Douglas walking off the film with the memorable declaration, "Kirk's leaving." His departure could have derailed the production entirely, but in a remarkable twist of fortune, veteran actor Richard Crenna was brought in at the last minute. Crenna reportedly memorized his lines en route and stepped seamlessly into the role, ultimately delivering a performance that became iconic and central to the film's success. Both Stallone and Kotcheff later credited sticking to their vision and Crenna's serendipitous casting as vital to the creation and lasting appeal of the Rambo franchise. Stallone himself reflected that had Douglas's version been used, Rambo might have died, not just on screen, but as a cultural phenomenon. This tense artistic conflict was one of many challenges Stallone faced in his career. Yet, perhaps his most enduring and transformative battle was not with a legend of the past, but with a rival of the present, Arnold Schwarzenegger. The competition between the two muscle-bound icons was far more than professional. It became a full-blown, tabloid-fueled war of egos, box office dominance, and cultural supremacy throughout the 1980s and 90s. Both actors competed fiercely for roles, audience favor, and critical attention, often mocking each other publicly and privately, plotting one-upmanship, such as Schwarzenegger allegedly tricking Stallone into starring in the notorious flop Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Despite its intensity, their rivalry eventually transformed into mutual respect. Years later, Stallone and Schwarzenegger would not only collaborate in projects like The Expendables, but also reflect warmly on their competitive past. Still, the early years of their feud were filled with venom, ambition, and an unrelenting desire to dominate Hollywood. Two alpha titans locked in a cinematic duel, each striving to be the last action hero standing. Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger's rivalry stands as one of Hollywood's most legendary and colorful battles, a clash not only of physical prowess, but also of ambition, ego, and box office dominance. Throughout the explosive 1980s and 1990s, these two muscle-bound titans fiercely competed for the coveted title of the ultimate action star, engaging in a relentless game of one-upmanship that played out across magazine covers, movie releases, and industry gossip. Each sought to outshine the other with bigger muscles, more daring stunts, and blockbuster hits, captivating fans worldwide and fueling a very public and personal competition. One of the most infamous episodes in their rivalry involved a cunning prank, orchestrated by Schwarzenegger, which tricked Stallone into starring in the critically panned 1992 action comedy Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. Schwarzenegger feigned interest in the film's script, deliberately baiting Stallone's competitive nature to scoop up the role just to prevent Arnold from having it. Schwarzenegger later confirmed the ruse with a laugh, and Stallone grudgingly admitted he had been outmaneuvered. And I think I did it because I was trying to get back at Arnold. I heard he was going to do it, so I said, I'm going to do it, and then he would, I tricked you. Though the film became a notable low point in Stallone's career, the incident ironically marked a turning point in their dynamic. Over time, the bitter animosity that once defined their relationship softened into grudging respect, and eventually blossomed into genuine friendship. And in one show, he shared how he came to hate Arnold Schwarzenegger in a funny way. We were very competitive. Yeah, I think hate's a good word. It is. Come on. Did you ever hate somebody so much you go, I got to get to the gym, I got to, a musician go, oh, I hate this guy. I'm gonna blow him away next audition. The two action stars went on to share the screen in major collaborative projects like The Expendables franchise and Escape Plan, delighting fans with their chemistry and camaraderie. Their journey from fierce competitors to close allies illustrates the evolving nature of Hollywood relationships and personal growth, showcasing a rare example of rivalry giving way to mutual admiration. Stallone's Hollywood career was filled with similarly dramatic moments, creative clashes, personal betrayals, and high-stakes battles, including disputes with other stars and creative conflicts that tested his resilience, whether facing challenges from legendary actors or navigating the treacherous politics of fame. Stallone's story is one of complexity, persistence, and survival. His ability to endure and thrive amid conflict, both on and off screen, reveals the multifaceted man behind the iconic characters, cementing his legacy as one of cinema's most enduring and compelling figures. This intricate tapestry of conflict, woven with vibrant threads of ambition, glaring misunderstanding, and fierce, indomitable pride, ultimately reveals a great deal more about the enduring and often wonderfully contradictory legend that is Sylvester Stallone than any single box office receipt or film review ever could. He is, undeniably, the quintessential action hero who defined a generation, the Oscar-nominated writer who penned his iconic roles, the determined director who helmed many of his pictures, and even the surprisingly introspective painter, a multifaceted artist who has navigated 5 tumultuous, ever-changing decades of Hollywood with an unmatched, sometimes famously abrasive, yet undeniably effective tenacity. This extraordinary journey has left behind a profound legacy, one as much defined by his monumental on-screen triumphs and cultural impact as by the very real, often bruising, off-screen battles that so profoundly shape the man and the myth. He is far more than just the simple sum of Rocky Balboa's unyielding grit or John Rambo's silent intensity. He is a deeply complex, often polarizing figure whose personal struggles and highly publicized professional feuds are inextricably fascinatingly part of his compelling, larger-than-life narrative. The long-standing, almost comically bitter animosity with Richard Gere, the abrupt, headline-grabbing financial clash with Bruce Willis, a once-treasured friendship with comedic genius Eddie Murphy, shattered by corrosive suspicion, the high-stakes, vision-altering creative standoff with the legendary Kirk Douglas, and, of course, the epic, generation-defining rivalry with Arnold Schwarzenegger that astonishingly mellowed into a genuine mutual respect and friendship. Each of these conflicts offers a revealing lens into the high-pressure, high-stakes crucible that is Hollywood. It remains an environment where colossal egos often collide with explosive force, where competition is not just fierce but fundamental, and where fortunes, reputations, and relationships can turn on a dime or a single misunderstood word. One might legitimately wonder, looking back, how Stallone's own renowned gritty resolve, that core characteristic first highlighted in his underdog breakout, played into these numerous confrontations. Was it always the unwavering strength that propelled him forward? Or did that same unyielding determination sometimes morph into a stubborn flaw? Perhaps escalating tensions where a touch more diplomacy might have prevailed. It's a question worth pondering. Yet, what remains undisputed is his extraordinary resilience. Through devastating professional flops that would have ended lesser careers, through the unimaginable personal tragedy of losing his beloved son, Sage Stallone, and through the relentless, often unforgiving glare of public scrutiny and scandal, his ability to endure and fight back has been nothing short of remarkable. This is, after all, the boy from the tough streets of Hell's Kitchen, physically marked from a traumatic birth, who fought tooth and nail for every single opportunity, who willed himself into global stardom against improbable odds. His enduring legacy, therefore, is not just one of an action hero preserved in cinematic amber, but of sheer, unadulterated perseverance against all manner of adversity. The scars, both the visible ones from his birth and the countless metaphorical ones etched deep by life's myriad battles and Hollywood wars, are not blemishes on his incredible story, but rather integral, defining parts of his iconic figure status and his enduring stardom. Perhaps it is these very human complexities, these visible struggles against formidable external and internal forces, that ultimately make such larger-than-life figures even more compelling, anchoring their legendary status in something undeniably raw, surprisingly relatable, and profoundly fascinatingly human. Thanks for watching. If this content resonated with you, don't forget to like, share with others who appreciate thoughtful insights, and subscribe for more compelling explorations.